What if I told you that Battlefield 2042's biggest issue is not the bugs? Might be hard to believe, but stick around and you're definitely going to find out why this is the case. Now, without further ado, remember, if you do enjoy today's video, don't forget to leave it a nice, thick, and juicy like. And of course, if you enjoy this kind of content, you want more like it, be sure to hit that big red sexy subscribe button right underneath the video. Also got to thank my channel members. You guys help make these videos possible. If you want to join, get access to the exclusive perks that they get, be sure to check out that blue join button. Anyway, let's begin. So like I said, it's not the bugs that are really at the heart of what Battlefield 2042's biggest issues are. You may have noticed, if you're someone like me who can kind of tolerate bugs, which even in this game is pretty hard to do for me, there are still issues that are just at the core of what this game is. And that is part of what makes it so much more of an infuriating experience when you're playing the game. Now, what this issue is not just shallowness, but the illusion of depth. And let me explain why this is the case. Now, first of all, you've probably noticed how the gameplay in general has degraded, at least if you've been playing since the early access, how it's slowly degraded as more people have unlocked more completely unbalanced things in the game. For example, the vehicles, which are intended for transport, all have cannons on them. This is the illusion of depth because no one was really asking for Jeeps and other transport vehicles to have these high splash damage, low skill ceiling weapons that anyone can just grab and get a bunch of kills with. That is not fun. That is just frustrating. That does not allow a skilled player to come in and be able to be effective as a skilled player. That just means anyone can be as good as any skilled player, and results in frustrating moments for a lot of people on the other end of those multi-kills that everyone seems to be getting with either the Bolt and the hovercraft and the LATV-4 and its cannons, or the transport helicopter, which also has a cannon on it for some reason, and numerous other things in the game that are just extremely easy to use. And regardless, even if you take the cannons off of a lot of these vehicles, there's no depth to them anyway. The helicopters are extremely easy to fly, which I can see the argument there. They are very difficult to just fly straight in a game like Battlefield 4, but still, they're a little too easy to fly, and even then the controls feel a little wank in terms of flying them. So sure, you can fly straight easier once you get the hang of it. It still feels really weird and kind of arcadey. There's no real weight to the helicopter. You don't feel like you're flying a helicopter that has weight to it and swings and has momentum. It just kind of is floating around. You also have the fact that, say for example, in tanks, you can't find certain angles to hit them from. You aren't rewarded for getting behind a tank and taking it out, because getting behind it doesn't do any more damage than hitting it from any other angle. And no, I'm not asking for glancing blows to come back, but in a game like Battlefield 4, which didn't have glancing blows, if you got behind a tank and found its weak spot, you were able to take it out a lot quicker. And the same goes for the tanker. The tanker was able to position himself so that in a fight with another tank per se, you keep your front towards that tank. You got to reverse if they're coming at you or attack them from the front. You can out damage them by positioning correctly. That is a level of skill and knowledge that Battlefield players appreciate and want in the game, so that you know these things in a fight. There's no question as to why I died. I know why I died. I positioned it incorrectly. I got swarmed and they got behind me. There's many reasons that you add that kind of a depth to a game like this, and it's not in 2042. Now, beyond the vehicles, there's also the fact that there's only 22 weapons for the infantry to use in all-out warfare. I'm not counting Portal. I know there's a lot more weapons in Portal, but a lot of those are already unlocked and have all of the attachments and whatnot, and those are guns you're only going to use in Portal. The guns you're progressing and trying to use a lot in all-out warfare, there's only 22 of them, and you might say that's fine. You know, a lot of people in the previous games, they would just find their favorite gun and they would only use that one, so they're probably just trying to focus on weapon progression and having depth to that, right? And that would be great if that was the case. I would be totally fine with that. I even mentioned that in my early impressions video. But that's not the case. A lot of the attachments do relatively the same thing. You'll have different grips that are identical to one another. There's no reason to go and try and unlock one later down the line, because it's the same as the one you just unlocked. So it's the illusion of depth that you're going to, oh, I'm going to get this new attachment. It probably does something a little bit better, a little bit cooler than what the current one I have, when it's literally the same thing. It just looks a little bit different. That is a problem, because that's just the illusion of depth to ranking up your guns. And while we're still on the aspect of infantry, what happened to classes? Specialists are okay. I will give them credit. Specialists are probably the most well thought out thing in this game. They are relatively well balanced against one another. It doesn't feel like one specialist is meta compared to other ones. But even then, classes offered a lot more customization and unique loadouts that you can't really have with specialists. Specialists, you have so many presets that are already there, you really are limited to only certain playstyles and then whatever weapon you want to pick to go with that. To me, it's cool, but it's almost more of a novelty than it is something that I think has real staying power. Part of what made games like Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, and Battlefield 1 so great was that drop of water in a bucket feeling that you had. You were this just nameless face in this conflict at the mercy of the chaos of this massive battlefield. And it really worked well with the theme of the game. Now they seem to have this Apex approach where they want you to get attached to these characters and their stories in the war, but it's weird at the same time. I'm trying to get attached to, say, Angel, and I'm shooting Angel on the other team as I'm playing as him, so that's kind of weird. And then he has this goofy "don't be sad" line at the end of a round.
Don't be sad. This is just how it works out sometimes.
How am I supposed to get attached to that? How am I supposed to feel for him? How is that supposed to fit the theme of the game? Again, it's the illusion of this depth, of this deep customization, this freedom that specialists are supposed to offer. You know, you are supposed to have more ability to set up how you approach the battlefield, but in reality you only have these set presets and you can only approach it from what, there's 9 specialists, so there's only 9 different ways you can approach the battlefield, and then whatever weapon you pick. To me, that's not depth. Whereas if you have various gadgets and class systems, sure, there's only 4 classes, but there's several combinations of gadgets you can put together along with the weapons they have. Don't forget, other games had universal weapon classes, so you could be pretty versatile on how you approach things. I feel like there's a lot more variation there. So specialists, yeah, there's more on the surface, but if you look slightly beneath the surface, you see that's all it is just variety for the sake of variety. There's no depth there, and that's a theme across a lot of things, whether it's the various cannons and high splash damage weapons you get on transport vehicles, or it's the specialists. It's just variety for the sake of it. Now, this isn't just limited to the actual gameplay. Look at the various modes. First of all, there's only 2 modes in All Out Warfare. I would love the 64-player modes to come to next gen, as it's way more fun than the 128 players. It's just, it flows better. There's fewer vehicles trying to run you over at any given time, and it's just more fun. And that's with bugged loadouts that I have to reset every single match, and I can really only use one weapon because that's all the game allows me to use, because again, it's that bugged. That is more fun than the 128 players. But also look at Hazard Zone. What purpose does Hazard Zone serve? It feels like the game was built around Hazard Zone, but what's the point of it? It's kind of cool after playing it a couple times, but I would still rather play All Out Warfare because that's the Battlefield experience I'm looking for. And, you know, it's fun to jump in with friends, but you can really only play with friends. If you play with randoms, I seriously doubt you're going to have a very good time. On top of that, how does it really fit into the rest of the game? You have these dark market credits that really only for Hazard Zone, and it's not hardcore enough for your Tarkov players to come and play it. There's not enough depth there for that, and it's also not unique enough for your regular Battlefield players to want to come and play it. It's just this very, very casualized version of an extraction royale that just doesn't appeal to really anyone because it's trying to appeal to everyone. It's like it's trying to be both Warzone and Tarkov, but it's neither because it's got its own 2042 theme to it. It's kind of hard to describe, and it's really weird. It's not a horrible mode by any means. Again, I had a few rounds on it, and I grew to actually find that it's an interesting mode. I just don't love it, and I don't want to just pick it up and play it all the time is the thing with that. You might be different, but I don't see the mass appeal to it, especially since it's behind a paywall. Then there's the sandbox, or the illusion of the sandbox. They told us over and over again this is going to be the biggest, baddest sandbox that there's going to be in the franchise, but the problem is there is pretty much no sandbox, and I'm not saying that lightly, I'm not exaggerating. There quite literally is no sandbox. Sure, you can interact with a few things on the map, but that's about it. Where are the battlefield pickups that add value to certain objectives for strategic purposes? Where are the vehicles that spawn on the map? That's part of the sandbox. Instead, everything you pick is from a menu. And while we're talking about picking things from a menu, that's where the battlefield pickups are. Look at the NTW50. You want to talk about things that are going to ruin the game as more unlocks happen? A one-shot sniper rifle that anyone can use? You're telling me that's going to be fun for everyone when there's going to be servers on Breakthrough that are just all that one weapon? I practically guarantee it. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit there, but I mean, there's a reason the old games had these really cool, unique weapons where only one person could have that battlefield pickup, that really powerful item at a time. It allowed them to make it as cool and as powerful as they wanted to make it, but it was limited in its usage. It was balanced via power to rarity. Your common items, your regular weapons were well balanced against one another, but your extremely rare battlefield pickups were really, really powerful. It wasn't irritating though, because again, only one person at a time could use it, and odds are they were going to miss most of their shots because there's probably some goober that was just going to try and find it and wait on it. Instead, you select it from a menu, and I don't see the kind of unique fun appeal of that. It's not as cool as like, ooh, look what shiny toy I just found on the battlefield. It's like, I'm just going to click that, and I'm just going to snipe people today with my no-skill sniper cannon. I don't find that fun. Even the Martini Henry, a lot of people are calling it Battlefield 2042's Martini. The Martini actually took, well, maybe after some patches, it actually took some skill to use in Battlefield 1. Initially it did not. It was bugged. It had that hit multiplier for the entire body. I get it. That was frustrating, and that was not a lot of skill. And they want to have this weird balancing act where it has this long reload in 2042 with the NTW50. That still, it just make it a pickup. That it just seems like a weapon that would be the perfect battlefield pickup. And it's not even necessarily that the NTW50 is extremely overpowered. It's just a weapon that's pretty annoying to come across. If you have those kinds of things on the battlefield, that is what makes it a sandbox. Have those things spawn on the battlefield. Have those really powerful things just spawn on the battlefield and let there only be one of them. Again, you balance the power to rarity ratio. That is what makes it unique. That is what makes it fun. That is what makes the battlefield the battlefield. Now, I know there are some vehicles, of course, that you don't have to select from some sort of menu. There's, of course, the various quad bikes and the cyber truck, but there's really only like one or two of those at a time, and they're honestly, you're better off just calling one in or just trying to trudge across open ground if you want to take that risk. But there's probably going to be some dude camping in his LATV4 or his Bolt waiting for some unsuspecting goober to run by and blast you with his cannon, and then just proceed for the next victim to walk by. It's just, it has a lot of issues, and I'm hoping a lot of these get solved. But again, you can't deny that a lot of the gameplay experience has degraded as more things have gotten unlocked, and the balance of this game has been greatly exposed. I really hope some changes are made, and I don't think they're going to completely overhaul the game and add a ton of depth to it, but maybe changing up how some of the attachments work, give more purpose to some of them, because some of them, like I said, they're completely identical. Maybe change up how the vehicles work, make it to where there are sweet spots on the vehicles where there's some areas where it does less damage because there's more armor there, and there's areas where there's less damage because there's less armor there. Add those kind of things to the game, because that would make it feel like the battlefield. I mean, I can't say I was not expecting something like this, considering we don't have a server browser, considering we don't have a scoreboard, considering the goofy voice lines, considering a lot of just the general missing features in the game. Can't say I was too surprised when I found out a lot of these gameplay features weren't there and a lot of the depth wasn't there to the gameplay, but hopefully a lot of these things just get added and a lot of these changes are made. And I don't expect an overhaul. I don't expect it to turn into a Battlefield 4 remake, but something to make it more of a Battlefield game that has that depth and that skill curve to it would be greatly, greatly welcome. I know I kind of ranted for a little bit here, but I want to get my thoughts out on this, because it's really something that I wanted to see from this game. And I thought after Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 1 really struggled to retain players, obviously some of that was due to lack of content, but a lot of that was because both of those games are pretty shallow experiences. And I love Battlefield 1. I don't really like Battlefield 5 that much, but they have that common issue where there isn't a huge skill curve. And that's still present here in 2042, because there isn't much to do. There's not much that you can do that will help you outplay someone. Once you've learned some of the movement, once you've learned some of the gunplay, and once you unlock some cannons on your vehicles that are transports, well, you can just dominate servers. It's that easy. Well, you can dominate them if you're in one of those vehicles, maybe not so much as infantry, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a very limited skill gap here, and it's almost as minimal as it possibly can be, and I really hope to see a change there. So anyway, let me know down below what you think of Battlefield 2042. Do you think that it has enough depth to it? Do you think that it is too shallow like I do? Let me know down below. I don't want you guys to get me wrong. I do enjoy this game when it works. It can be fun, but I gotta say it does wear thin relatively quickly just because there's not too much to experience aside from some chaos and some fun gunfights here and there, again, when the game works. So let me know down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.